So, yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. So my name is Diomidis Michalopoulos, or the short version of my name is simply Dio, but every time I come to Italy, I avoid using this short version because of the, hey, yeah, exactly. That's I don't want to use this part for my name. So we're gonna talk about the how to stimulate creativity in education. So we all know how important this is, and it has been said already, but I just want to make some comments in order to emphasize the importance of stimulating creativity in education, not just because from, say, the society's perspective, since we all know how important it is to have people to be creative in their professional way, where the society needs creative professionals, the society needs creative artists, but also from the individual perspective, I could say, in the sense that we would like to emphasize the pedagogical meaning of education. And one of the main mottos, say, of the conference is that creative thinking is a necessary activity for the dignity of human beings. I would like to say that, in my opinion, creativity does contribute a lot to a higher quality of life. I totally believe that, and I believe that the education should, and it's very important to have this aspect to make people that use creativity in their everyday life, and they're ultimately happier and has a better well-being. So creativity in education, well, here we see a sign that totally, say, rejects the connection of schools with education. To be honest, I'm not against schools, you know, and I guess most of us are not against schools, so we just, I guess most of us agree that the way schools are, you know, are transmitting the knowledge, say, to young children is not the way that is most appropriate for them to develop their own ideas, right? So we know that creativity is often lost, and this is because mostly education focuses on results and the grades, and that's another issue that needs to be addressed, is that children usually perceive education as a duty, and I fully agree with Martin Cooper with his talk today, this morning, that there should be some way to stimulating this creativity through some other ways of education, not just the traditional one, through the duty of education, for example, through games or something that children perceive as much more interesting than just doing their homework. And this can be, of course, implemented through some course, and giving a different orientation to courses towards that respect. So that's a thing that we should put more attention to, is that we should value creativity as a way to celebrate the act for to celebrate the value for being creative, rather than just the means to an end, to achieving some goal. Usually that's a very important thing in everyday life, and we can all, I think, agree to that, that sometimes it's not just the goal that we want to achieve, but it's the journey towards that should be celebrated, right? So in this respect, we have here a famous quote by Albert Einstein, that the supreme art of the teacher is to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge, right? And it's quite interesting that many people agree to that, but unfortunately this is not efficiently implemented nowadays in education. So in this respect, we have these 5 interesting talks. All of them are very interesting and worth putting attention to. In brief, I would say that I found them very nicely presented, at least the abstract that I have the opportunity to read. We will see here some interesting results regarding some online tools, some virtual awards, and we'll see how this can be applied to stimulate creativity, right? And we'll see also some other results dealing with the correlation of creativity with the dimensions of meaning that I find particularly interesting, and particularly how emotion can correlate with the creativity in education of young children. And I guess, Ethan, that's your part.
That's your starting point.
Yeah.
The first question asked is how to work with the mic. So I accomplished this one successfully. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tania Kobe. For one comment about my name, if you struggle, and if you still don't know how to pronounce my name, if you know me before, just remember it's the number 8, Tan. So if you're confused, you can just call me 8, which is also works. And I'm trying to be creative with my name, clearly. So just a little bit of information of what we wanted to give over here is say that we want to ask, what does it take to be creative? And we try to give maybe our 2 bits of information on that. And let me start with this really nice book that I enjoy reading, Shake the World, which really interviews with very successful people what was their journey, their path to find and change the world. And one thing which is really nice to say here, it's really the ability to see beyond the conventional and also to act differently to something which is really ordinary and just to do something which is completely extraordinary. So I always like quotes, but I'm trying to see what it means for me. I'm an Israeli. One thing which we think about being creative is we have this Israeli concept which is called chutzpah. If you know what it means, it's good. If not, I'll try to explain what chutzpah means. Chutzpah means that you want to be rude, but in a nice way. Okay, so it's really contradictory. But let me give you a nice example for that. Say that you have these 2 guys go on a trip. They're both photographers. They love taking really great photos. And one is an engineer. The other one, let's say, he's not an Israeli or not Italian. I know it's the same, but he just has this chutzpah. So they come and they see this beautiful, really beautiful house, and there is a big window. And inside the house, there is a really nice painting. So the engineer comes, he wants to take this really nice picture of the house and the painting from the inside, but there is a window. What does he do? He calculates very quickly where the sun is, the degree, the angle, how much light he has, the position of the camera, and then he takes a really nice picture. You can see both the house and the painting inside. Very nice. The one with the chutzpah comes, what does he do? He go inside the house, he opens the window, he go outside, he take a really great picture of both the house and the painting. So this is our concept for Israeli chutzpah for that. So this is one thing about being creative. But we follow up of what Vint was saying before, and also the other speakers, that really to be creative, you need to take this courage. And really one question to ask is, when did you actually let yourself be creative? When did you actually let yourself to be able to fail and to really follow what you want to do? And again, like, what does it mean? And especially for me, I heard this really nice talks by Brené Brown. If you know her, she's a professor at the University of Texas, Houston. What does she do? She studies and researches shame and vulnerability. And I'll take one of the highlights from her talks. So she studied shame, and she interviewed a lot of women for like 4 years. She went to this event, she signed some books of her book, and then this guy come to her and he asked her, I figured that you interview only women. Why is that? She studied, and then she answered him, because I study only women. So he told her, that's convenient. So she had nothing to say, and he told her, you see this book that I just bought for my wife and my 3 daughters? She said, yes. And you just signed it? She said, yes. And then he tells her, they would rather die on top of my white horse than actually seeing me failing. And she was shocked. And really, I mean, just as an example here, and also including for myself, how many times you don't let yourself to fail because you're worried what your parents, your kids, your teacher, or whoever your other mentors in life would think about you in case you fail. And I talked with many friends also on that aspect, to grow up in a family, a supportive teachers, and also Vid mentioned with Google also, to be in a company that actually give you the freedom, give you the opportunity to, yeah, it's okay to fail. You just want to try and pursue your passion, what you really want to do in life. So this is one thing about the concept for me of what it means to be able to fail. I'll follow up on another great speaker. This is Sir Ken Robinson. And I guess many of you know about him. He had a really nice talk talking about education. And this is one of the nice quotes. But really I'll skip the quote, but the concept of it here, that every time, in many of the Marconi fellows here, they show their own experience of how they did something that everybody told them they're going to fail. And even though they did follow, they believe what they wanted to do, and eventually they succeeded. And how many times we have this idea, everybody say, oh, you know, it's completely bullshit, and you still go follow your path and you find a way. So he gave this really nice story about this teacher and now following with education. So the teacher come and she give assignment to these kids, and the assignment just to draw a painting. So she walks around in the room and she sees this girl. It's like, oh, what are you drawing? So the girl tell her, oh, I'm drawing a picture of God. So the teacher tell her, you cannot draw a picture of God. Nobody knows what God looks like. So the girl tells her, true, they will know in a minute. So I really like to see creativity with kids, because I think kids are really the most creative people that we know of. They have no boundaries, and they just follow their passion. They follow their happiness. They say that we are born with a name. We work hard to get these initials afterwards, whether it should be the other way around. We should be born with these whatever initials, and we need to work hard to just get rid of them and be creative. So with that, I'll just conclude that really creativity, the third point here, is just to follow your passion and your happiness, because this is really what's most important in life, just to be happy. And to conclude that with, I guess, one of the famous quotes by John Lennon about being happy. So he asked his mom, you know, what is important in life? She said, just to be happy. And when they gave him this assignment of, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up? He just said, I want to be happy. And you know the rest of it here. So really with that, I hope we didn't go over time too much. And I'll let the speakers take the show. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Diomedes and Eitan. Excellent introduction to this session, which will start with John Cabra, trying to exploit all the features of the ICT technology in this room with a 3D presentation. Hopefully it will go right. John right now is a professor at the State University of New York, College of Buffalo International Center of Studies in Creativity, and also adjunct at Universidad de la Sabana in Colombia, and part of a team teaching and research in the science of creativity, so exactly the mission of the conference. So John, if you're ready, you can take the floor.
Great, thank you very much. What I want to do in this session is to do three things. One I'd like to do is disseminate our results from an action research study where we incorporated this three-dimensional virtual world in teaching a Principles of Creative Problem-Solving course at the graduate level. The second thing I want to do is I actually want to demonstrate how we've used this three-dimensional virtual world to teach creative thinking in face-to-face or in campus-based courses. And third, I want to be able to discuss what are some of the opportunities and limitations as a result of using this three-dimensional virtual world. But I need to give you in context before I begin getting into those objectives. One, just to give you a background about my department. The presenters were all faculty members, alumni of the International Center for Studying Creativity, which is an academic unit at the State University of New York, Buffalo State College. And we were founded in 1967, and we are the first to offer a Master of Science degree in creativity. And so we have 5 faculty members that's dedicated full-time to studying and actually teaching the science of creativity. We have a distance program for distance learners. We also have a Certificate of Creativity and Change Leadership program. And I'd like to end by also saying, with regard to this slide, that our mission is to ignite creativity worldwide. And I'll revisit that in a moment, because it's connected to what we're doing here with the 3D virtual world. This process evolved from the work of a gentleman by the name of Alex Osborne, who's considered to be the father of brainstorming. And so he develops this technique, brainstorming, but not only the technique, but he also developed the creative problem-solving process along with Sidney Parnes. So it's evolution of the Sidney Parnes, Alex Osborne creative problem-solving model. And so Todd Lewis talked about sequence of thought or sequence of stages. And so in each of these stages, we provide tools and techniques to ignite certain kinds of thinking. So in that blue area, we train students to ignite strategic thinking, visionary thinking, diagnostic thinking. And the orange part there, we give them tools and techniques to be able to ignite ideational thinking. And then in the green area, we give them tools and techniques to take those raw ideas and turn them into workable solutions, which we call evaluative thinking. And in the magenta part, we give them tools and techniques to engage in what we call tactical and contextual thinking as a means to not only get people to adopt change and these workable solutions, but also to implement them. That said, I want to share with you a story that impelled me to actually move into this 3D virtual world. This is my son, and this happened maybe 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And so he's playing this game, which is called Madden Football, and you get to manipulate players. So you either throw, block, kick the ball. And so I'm watching him, actually impressed by his ability to maneuver this game. And he says to me, "Dad, do you want to play with me or against me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do it." So I'm doing my best to play this game. And as much as I tried to compete with him, I could not compete with him. He was just that good. And then he stopped in his very kind, gentle, tactful way, said, "Dad, thank you for playing with me, but right now I want to play against the computer." That's right. So my reaction was just like yours. Initially, it was one of laughter. And then it struck me. I was saddened and I was sobered by the experience because I realized that if I cannot connect with my son at this age, what's going to happen when he reaches college-age years? In fact, these kind of students, these kind of kids are already in our classrooms. So I felt vulnerable. I felt like I had to do something because I have 20 more years of instruction at Buffalo State College. If I don't do something now, I'm going to be disconnected with my students when they reach our classrooms. And you know, because we've talked about the exponential growth of technology, it's expanding incredibly. And so with this vulnerability, I decided to actually start to delve into this three-dimensional virtual world. But there are other gaps. Citing a couple of survey studies that came out in 2013, 32% of students are taking courses online in the US. Translate that into numbers, you got 6.7 million students that are actually taking courses online in the US, and we expect that to grow. Third thing is that the nature of our students are changing, what we call the digital natives. These are individuals that are comfortable dealing with creative collaboration in a digital format. They network, they teach each other, and so these are the people, the nature of our students that are coming into our classroom. The other thing, too, about this point is that up to this point in our program, we've been teaching creative problem-solving courses face-to-face. And we've also been using this educational platform that we call Blackboard, but it's asynchronous. And so when they were using this Blackboard platform, what we were getting from students, they're telling us that they felt isolated, they felt alienated because working in this asynchronous format was they were disconnected from their students, they were disconnected from the teacher. So to give you by way of example, this is our Blackboard educational platform. Students open up a folder each week, they read material, they watch a video, and they respond to a question that I post onto this. And so one of the students actually left our program and said, when I open these folders, I engage in what's called, I experience this posting traumatic syndrome. She opens up a folder, she sees all these incredible threads and all these posts, and posts from her students, and she gets overwhelmed. So that had to be fixed. And so other gaps, now talking about our mission, our mission is to ignite creativity worldwide. And here we are asking students that if you want to learn creativity and ignite your creative thinking, you have to come to Buffalo to do that. So that was running up against our mission. Second, why is that? Because we had this predominant assumption that creativity training can only be campus-based. Here's what I mean by that. So I'm going to show you pictures of our classes. On the top, you see our graduate students that have produced work and displayed as if it was in an art gallery. They can build on that work, they can move it, and so it's interactive. On the bottom left, we work in small groups. It's high energy, high interactive, And on the bottom right here, although they're not graduate students, you have children that are actually will go onto this contraption or this thing that we put on the carpet where they can place themselves according to their preference for how they like to approach the creative process, namely their cognitive style preference. And so it's interactive. The other thing, too, with regard to our classes, this is, again, this assumption that it has to happen in Buffalo. Here's our students that have just finished doing divergent thinking, brainstorming for many options using Post-its, and now they're going to start beginning the process of clustering those that are similar and then giving them a title according to what makes them similar. The other thing is that as instructors, our logistics involves a lot of props, posters, flip chart paper, and we move them around. And so that posed a problem. So what was our response? Let's try this, what I call Enter Cube. And so this is the 3D virtual world at a bird's eye view. And then you can see here the entry point to this virtual place. We have an auditorium in here so we can do presentations. We have a place to network. We have also what we call a happy hour for those people who just want to stay after class and interact. And actually, somebody actually asked me to put in a bar so I can give them clue that this is a social happy hour. And then we have small, stations here for small group work, and we have stations here to facilitate CPS. Now, here is our action research study question. Can creative collaboration be done in a 3D virtual world without losing this physical or campus-based human experiences that we were having on campus? Our answer to that question based on our experience is that yes. So I'm going to bring you back to the campus-based experience as you see in these three pictures. Now I'm going to show you the simulation of that in the 3D virtual world. And so up here, you see students coming through their avatar, and one of the students in this assignment was to adopt a scholar in the field of creativity, and they displayed all the work that was related to that scholar, and they start to have a discussion around that. On the right, on the top right, you see a way in which we can take our PowerPoint slides, convert them into photographs, serve as posters, and then we can also bring in video clips that we can watch and we can discuss. Bottom left, you see the students' output of the generation of ideas through virtual Post-its that can be manipulated, moved, and edited. And the bottom right, you might have remembered the 4 quadrants on the floor. Now we can get students to use their avatar and move them to these quadrants to learn more about their preferences and then a group profile of their students' group approach to the creative process. Now, you might have noticed that here you had video. This 3D virtual world has an ability so that when students are in class, like Skype, they're video streaming in this platform. And so you see my students there. You can also turn on the mic so you can hear them. And you can see their nonverbals, because for instructors, it's really important to pick up on these nonverbals to find out whether you're doing things well, and you need to either redirect. Okay? So I'm just going to show you by way of a. Let me see. Can you plug this in, because I'm seeing I'm running out of power. And this is the plug here. I'm going to show you a video clip, and you're going to see one of my students and her avatar, and then you see group brainstorming, and then you see some group work. And you turn off the mic just for them to hear
this. One is where we started, the conference room table at level 1, and then group 2 is here on the 3rd. And make your way towards the corner here, where we have Allison and Adam. And I think we have Raphael somewhere. We lost Raphael. That is Raphael. All right. And so, if you would, whoever wants to serve as a spokesperson, go right ahead and then share with me your definition.
Unifying world cultures.
Great. Other thoughts? You're doing great.
Improving communication by communication.
Okay, so let me now get back to let me get to the results. As a result of using this three-dimensional virtual world, here's what we learned. That our students are telling us that the visual, auditory, spatial cues that are in this virtual community actually help them to recall and actually master the topic of creative problem solving and tools and techniques, as opposed to a Blackboard education platform, which is asynchronous. So watching them actually used these techniques and facilitated a creative problem-solving process indicate to me that this was working. The other thing, too, they felt like there was a sense of shared place, that students can come in, leave their work, and know that when they came back, that work was there. But moreover, they had a place where all the students and their classmates could come to this place, and as a result, the students were able to demonstrate naturally their behaviors, and they can practice their creative behaviors and the tools and techniques that they were learning. The other thing, too, they got the strong sense of being there for learning. That means as an instructor, they felt great that they can chat to me a question while the session was ongoing. And they can also wait till after class to actually ask me questions. But the fact that I was there helped them to feel like there was a sense of being there. The other thing, too, that we noticed, which was an interesting surprise, students wanted to use the space as a way of decorating it. Actually, students started asking us, can you give us an office space so that we can decorate it, show others, and actually display all our work, which I thought that was an interesting thing of a dynamic that happened. What are some concerns? There's a learning curve to learn some of these features. And so as a result, it might get in the way, it might create some frustration. Depending on the quality of the internet service, it could actually make the system crawl, or it could kick you out. It was subject at times, very few in terms of my experience, to crashing and freezing. And it was hard sometimes to track who's who in this classroom when they were time to speak or to contribute. So, and the other thing too, if your equipment is not new, let's say it's 5, 6 years old, sometimes it can affect the performance of this 3D virtual world. And sometimes because they were focused on learning about the technology, that it overshadowed the learning. So in the future, what are some things that we're planning on doing? One, we want to we teach courses on social innovation, and we want to know if they go out on their field experiences and bring in photographs and their stories, will that help to serve as inspiration for them to create new ideas to address a social issue? We want to start working in teaching and helping design for Fortune 500 companies. We also want to start looking at collaborating with other universities so they can use this 3D virtual world. And we're also looking at how we can get children from the US to work with children in other countries and engage in creative collaboration. Now let me finish this. My son, although to this day I was unable to impress him with my performance on this football game, however, I was able to impress him with this when I told him that there's 2 companies, namely Fisher-Price Toys, which manufacture toys, and then there's Masisa, which is out of Chile, that manufacture furniture, that we were able to use this 3D virtual world to help them to put products into the marketplace. And then my son said, wow, that's pretty cool. At any rate, so this is just our contact information. I want to thank the State University of New York for providing us the grant to actually do this action research study. And what I'm going to do differently is with regard to your questions, I'm going to have you address them or ask them of my colleagues who are not here but joined us through this 3D virtual world. And there you see my colleagues, Andy Burnett, who's having this not showing up. So I'm going to turn the thing around so that you can see, so my faculty, my colleagues can actually see you in this room. So can you wave Cindy and Andy just to say hello? Okay. All right, so with regard to your questions, feel free to actually ask them so they can respond to it.
Okay, yes, very, very interesting presentation. I suppose it highlights the importance of the conversation. That's it.
With regard to the, yeah, thank you.
Of the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my question was around the negatives that you mentioned about adoption of technology and how it can overshadow learning. Some of you might have heard of the one laptop per child project where they came up with a low-cost laptop. But one of the challenges when that laptop was given for helping students learn was that the teachers had a hard time adopting that in the classroom. So do you have suggestions on how, if this technology were to become part of every classroom around the world?
Thank you for the question. Andy, did you hear the question?
I think you might need to repeat it for me? I
Sure.
could hear some of it.
What was mentioned was this one laptop per child. And one of the things that there's been some challenges around getting teachers to actually adopt it and use it in teaching and curriculum. So what are some thoughts about that with regard to getting people, let's say, in our children and in more impoverished areas to actually utilize that, let's say, within this context of this 3D virtual world?
I think what we're looking at is a sort of multimodal future. In fact, some of the work that we've been experimenting with recently has been looking at how at the one end you might teach people with immersive 3D, and at the other end you might take the same content and deliver it in the form of a comic book. So I think fundamentally what we're looking at here is another option for engaging with people rather than the best option for everyone. Now, having said that, I also think that with the reduction in price of things like iPads and the new Amazon tablet and one or two things, coupled with the availability of reasonably fast cell phone networks, I suspect that access to technology over the next decade is going to become less and less of an issue. And even though what we're doing here requires a moderately powerful computer, over the next few years, we're certainly anticipating tablets as being one of the main ways that we would interact with students. Cindy, did you want to add anything?
No, that was good.
My name is Eric Optenberg. Is it already possible to share documents and to work together on one document in that classroom?
There is the ability to do that. I think for people who are used to using something like Google Docs, it doesn't have quite that capability, but later this year or perhaps early next year, we'll be starting to use a purely web-based version of this sort of environment, which I think is a really important step forward because it will make it easier for people to start mashing up all of the amazing services that people are building on top of web browsers. So we're anticipating bringing that into live 3D spaces.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Abby, thank you.
Thank you for a very, very interesting presentation, and congratulations for the environment, the 3D environment. So we move on to the next talk, which is by Gaetano Cascini, who's moving up to the podium here. He is a professor at the Politecnico di Milano, Milan Polytechnic, in the School of Industrial and Information Engineering, working on design, creativity, and inventive problem solving. Now, so far we've discussed creativity in many domains, none of which were specifically engineering domains except for the talk about Guglielmo Marconi. But now what Gaetano will talk about, which is a family of algorithms coming from a Russian tradition called TRIZ, is very, very engineering oriented and using Okay, we're ready.
So, also I have the problem with this. Oh, thank you. So, thank you for the introduction and good afternoon to everybody. Yes, yeah, I was actually prepared to claim that it is very, very nice to be here, and I would like to thank not just for politeness, but because I'm truly convinced that it is a great opportunity to sit here, people with different backgrounds and even perspectives on creativity to to meet and exchange ideas, doubts, questions, which are even more important than answers, actually. And, but of course, when something like this happens, it is necessary to try to avoid misunderstanding to the differences of language. So I will try also to make some clarifications about what I mean for some terms, starting, of course, with creativity. But at least from the title, also I need to specify even something about self-efficacy, where self-efficacy is referred, at least in some communities, as something that was even called self-confidence or confidence before. So the confidence to be capable to tackle tough tasks, tough problems to solve, something that you cannot address with your standard way of proceeding. So I will show you some impact, some results we achieved in one of the courses we deliver at Politecnico di Milano in the field of problem solving, based mostly, but not only, on TRIZ, the theory of inventive problem solving. So, of course, my presentation will start with an introduction to clarify the points of interest for this activity, and specifically the scope of this speech, this piece of research. And then I will go more precisely into the short description of the contents of this course and the way we asked and we try to understand what's the perceived self-efficacy of the students attending this course before and after the course itself. So again, with the necessity to clarify what do we mean with creativity, not in terms of definitions, but in terms of why it is important. I mean, it is important for many reasons, but for an engineer, it is supposed to be useful to create new knowledge, to use new knowledge produced by others, and so, generally speaking, to support the solution of problems that have not been solved so far by anybody else. And in the typical way of presenting this kind of goal, sometimes, some years ago, it was, we used to have the dream of the knowledge society. Now this word is not so considered, I mean, not so important, but it is still a dream maybe we are thinking about. And why it is, in my mind, an important subject for engineers, creativity, I mean, because if we consider the typical curriculum for engineering schools, at least I would say in Europe, but I would say that generally speaking more or less everywhere, if we don't consider the last years where many courses have been developed around the topic of design creativity and so on, most of engineering students spend the largest majority of their time learning models about how to analyze things, but not how to generate solutions, not about how to propose some new ideas. I mean, very often we call design just the activity of give the right values to some parameters, but not the generation of the new layout, the new paradigm, and so on. This is the most important problem. You know? And so this is why here I'm talking about design, but in terms of design creativity, something necessary to really propose something new and not just new values to something already existing. Okay, so this is the specific objective. Well, again, this is typical instruction for engineers, and so here we are considering one of the possible aspects. As I will present in a few slides, we are going. We are already introducing tools and methods supporting creative thinking in different courses, as seminars, as specific courses, and so on. And in order to understand if and how much these courses are useful and these tools are effective, of course, as engineers, we try to measure everything. We try to measure everything in terms of process they follow or the outcomes of their design assignments. But in this case, I will focus on something different, their perception So how much they think they improve their capability to tackle problems, which is also very important. And I mean, it's not something that we are discovering. We just learned from literature in different fields. So this is the aim of this work. And how we did it, probably a naive way, but we already observed this kind of approach in different, in other universities. Basically, giving a questionnaire at the very beginning of the course, before any introduction even, and after they pass the exam. So when they have no duties to be biased, hopefully, with respect to the teacher, and then making some statistical comparisons. So what do we do at Politecnico di Milano among the different courses? One of them is a course for mechanical engineers, or student of mechanical engineering, actually. It's 6 credits for non-European ones. It means, let's say, 2 lecturing hours and 3 practice hours a week for 13 weeks. And mostly we try to deliver 2 main capabilities. Thinking abilities to improve their reasoning with respect to synthesis activities, not to analysis activities, and imagination abilities, to think about something different from the common way of looking at things. And in order to foster these 2 abilities, we mostly refer to 2 main subjects. One is TRIZ, the theory of inventive problem solving. I will spend a few words on that. And on bio-inspired design, on biomimetics, or somebody also call it biomimicry. But I think that this part is more common, so the imitation of nature as a source of inspiration for solving problems. So a few words about TRIZ, just because probably you heard the name, but not everybody's familiar with its meaning. TRIZ is a Russian acronym, which stands for Theory of Inventive Problem Solving. Probably it's not really a theory, but certainly it is a quite articulated methodology with different models, tools, specific methods, and so forth. It's the product, the outcome of this person, Gerrit Saulovich Altschuler, and his colleagues, who worked for several decades in the second part of the last century. And the essence, the very essence, of course, it is kind of complex stuff to explain everything in 2 slides, but let me say that the essence is this one. By analyzing tons of patents, looking both at the problems these patented inventions try to address and the solutions they proposed, Altschuler and his colleagues try to make some comparisons. And what he observed is the following, that through a proper abstraction process, you can observe that problems of the same nature are found in different fields of application, even in different ages. Even more interesting is that even if solutions are different, the path followed by inventors, even unconsciously, are very repeatable. So from this point of view, it is possible, let me say, to codify this path in order to guide a problem solving to the generation of ideas with a more efficient process. Just to mention 2 essential concepts about what the methods and tools of TRIZ propose. One of them is well known in terms of system thinking, and it is done with an engineering-like approach, but again, trying to stimulate a different kind of thinking. So for example, introducing systematically a different detail level of the analysis, of the search for resources, of the, let's say, manipulation of the problem while formulating it properly, and also with the invitation to look at different perspectives, because sometimes engineers look at a problem just in the very instant when the problem appears, and they don't realize that it is much, much easier to look maybe something before, maybe 1 hour before, or when the part was just manufactured, and everything can be solved much, much more easily. And I mean, it can seem something very, very trivial, but what usually happens is that without any methodological guide, engineers just go to the detail level. So if you give them something, they analyze any detail of the parts, but they don't look at the big picture. This is very typical. I could even say, just to defend engineers, because I'm an engineer, by the way, as well. If you give the same kind of problem to, let me say, an industrial designer who is supposed to be more creative, he goes to the upper level, but he doesn't consider the details. So it's useful for both of them. The second concept, which is, in my mind, useful, is the following. It's the concept of contradiction. This is very typical of TRIZ. To explain it, I will use a very simple example. Let's say that for the coffee break tomorrow, we want to prepare some chocolates filled with some syrup. And in order to make them sufficiently fast, we observe that the syrup is very thick. So we decide to heat up the syrup, because then it becomes more fluid. But when we start pouring this syrup in the chocolate shells, the chocolate melts, of course. So if you give a problem like this, just an example, of course, to an engineer, what it does is just making a lot of thermodynamics analysis, something like this, and then he defined the, let's say, how to strike the happy medium, we would say. So the optimum temperature in the middle, which is not too hot, not too cold. While it is much more easier to think about something different, like freezing the syrup and putting directly maybe the chocolate melt and obtain the chocolate the other way around, just to mention one. So one of the specific directions of TRIZ is to search for contradictions and have some guided tools to overcome these contradictions according to the lessons learned by the thousands of patents we analyzed before now, even in different fields, okay? So the course, of course, the course at Politecnico delivered this kind of topics with several, tools addressing these specific objectives. And what I want to present is the impact, again, on self-efficacy, giving the student attending the course a specific questionnaire before and after the start of before the start of the course and after they pass the exam. And how the seminar was done, it is based on 4 levels of agreement, so from totally disagree to fully agree. And actually the sample in this case was 31 students. The first set of questions, I'm not going to read them in details, but let's say they are all related to different aspects of self-efficacy, and they have been taken from another publication just to have a means for comparison between our results and them and theirs. And another set of questions was to understand if the course impacted the attitude to think, the imagination abilities. Of course, the red labels are not given to the students. It's just my very short summary to understand what's the purpose of these questions. So just to understand if and how much they use analogic reasoning, system thinking, they look at the ideality, abstraction characteristics, and so forth. Then to make it comparable in terms of numbers, the 4 levels were translated into a set of score, again, according to what we learned from literature, so has to be able to perform some statistical comparison. Now, it looks like a gentle agreement to avoid spending too much time in the statistical description, so I will just try to present the result of these 2 parts of the survey. Regarding the self-efficacy improvement, but of course I'm ready to give all the details even after, during the break or tomorrow when you like. So overall, looking at the entire classroom, we observe that the expected variations, not always positive, because some of questions were posed in the opposite way, just to make the questioner less, let's say, more variable, not to have always the same answers. Actually, it was always respected, sometimes with more meaningful results, sometimes with less meaningful results. And also for what concerns the second set of questions, we mostly observed good variations, but in 2 cases where the variations were absolutely absent. But looking at further into the details of these comparisons, okay, we made an hypothesis just to check if before and after there was any kind of difference between the students on an individual basis. And what we observed is actually the following. That especially if we look at the overall results, so the capability overall to increase the self-confidence of students in their problem-solving abilities, the results were quite positive. And if we try to understand what was the mechanism behind this higher confidence, what we can see is that for engineering students at least, system thinking, a more systematic approach to the synthesis of ideas, but also the concept of contradictions were the most highly impacted ones. While I had to admit that both abstraction, so to search analogies at a more abstract level, and the search for the available resources were not really impacted, at least in terms of self-confidence to follow this kind of path. So just to conclude, overall, I think that this kind of contents in a course can be useful, generally speaking, for increase their self-efficacy and to introduce also some belief and not just some let me say, practical capabilities about the possibility to address even problems that are outside of their fields of experience, which is very, very important because nowadays they always have to work in other fields. And of course, I can prevent a question. I'm not sure how much it was due to the contents of the course, how much it was due to other aspects of the course. I absolutely have no means to answer to this question. We just observed this kind of results. But of course, we plan to perform this kind of studies even in the following years. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaetano. Any questions from the floor? Okay, so yeah, please. Okay.
Hi. My question was around the fact that once you have gotten the results, if you share them back with the students, does it improve their confidence for, say, solving similar problems again? Did you look into that, or would that be interesting?
Okay. These numbers refer to 2 years, actually. And I showed the results of the first one to the students starting attending the second years. But to be honest, if I compare, I didn't present the 2 samples separately because from a statistical point of view, they were not enough to draw any conclusions, to be honest. But if I forget statistics and look at them, I could not observe any relevant difference between the first and the second year. So at least it looks that content and teachers are more influent than let's say, the awareness of these results. Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you for the interesting presentation. I just have a question regarding the path that students involved in inventive problem solving follow. So could you briefly highlight the main elements of this path, the common path that...
Okay.
That takes a week.
Yeah.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute just to try. Let me put it this way. If you can properly set the problem and identify, for example, a very, very critical contradiction meant as the desire for 2 opposite values for a certain parameter, even a qualitative one. So I want to have something, I don't want to have something. in the end, from a logical point of view, you have, let me say, two main alternatives. One is to divide the, your design space, whatever it is, into in space or in time or in detail level, so as to allocate the two opposite values in these two different subspaces. This is a bit abstract, but just to explain what is the strategy, okay? So whatever is the design space, I try to understand with an analytical process where to allocate the two opposite values, and then I give directions. Focus on thinking something that has these characteristics. This is one strategy. The second one is to totally change the way the technical function is delivered, because you already saturated all the possibility to make that system evolve. And in that case, the logic is to look at, I would say, to the physics, alternative ways to deliver the same function, and there are some directions about what are the features that the new way of delivering functions should follow. Very, very condensed, but I mean.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you. Time again. So the next speaker is Achva Margaliot. She received a PhD from Bar Ilan University. And her research topic right now is, I will read this very slowly, the theory of meaning as a frame for constructing all kinds of creativity skills. And I'm sure that your presentation will do well on that. It's, the title is A New Approach to Promoting Creativity in 11 to 14-year-old Children. Achva, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know where to stand, here. Oh, okay. Okay, so good afternoon. We hear lots of speaks about the way we actually define creativity, and afterwards how we measure creativity. And I would like us to go back to the very beginning of creativity, to the point by which creative ideas are generated. And what I'm going to do now is to ask you to be my partners and to participate to a very small process of attributing meaning, which I believe is the very beginning of a point by which ideas or any thoughts are beginning. And what we are do is, like, I will give you these notes, and I will ask you to, each one, please take one note, and share it with the others. Okay. Take a note. Okay. And in a minute, I'll show you a shape. And I will ask you to write down what this shape is according to what you think it can be, it might be. There is not any necessary use for this shape. Like, where is it? Here? Yes. Okay. So this is the shape. Just write down what you think this shape might be. Okay? Of course, I did not invent the shape. It's taken from a standard creativity test of Kogan-Walsh. If some of you ever asked to fill this test. Just one answer, yes, please. Just, oh, you got three, great. So you gain an excellent remark in my exam. No. Okay, have you done that? Okay, so now I am asking you to try and make the shape with your body, to show me the shape with your body without speaking. Just show me how this shape looks like. I want, okay? Okay, thank you. And now please combine with someone else, and try to make it together. Okay, thank you. Make the shape together. Good. Thank you very much. Okay. make the shape with your pipe cleaner. Make the shape, please. And those of you who get these tricks from me, take one strip and give it to the other. Okay. Okay, and try to show me the shape with this also, yes, if you can, with the white one and the pipes. Good. And now, again, make the small group and try to elaborate the shapes in order to create some other new thing that you didn't think previously. Think of a new idea for the shape altogether. If you are joined like for a couple or three, whatever. Join it into a new thing. Good, beautiful. All right, beautiful. And now, go back to the notes that you just write in the beginning and try to ask yourself if this very small exercise helped you to rethink or to think about some new thing, some new idea. Vlad, you say yes. You remember me from the 2008 Oxford? No. Yeah. Yes, yes. Okay. I asked you at the beginning. Now you remember. Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's memorizing. Okay. So this is my question. My question to you is, as a group, does the shape gain new meanings while working together? Yeah. Okay. So, good. And you show that. Okay. And now let's go one step further. Can we suggest some other uses for this shape if we combine them all together?
Wallpapers.
Yeah, okay. And was it easier? And then why? And now I would like you, I don't know why I don't have I said it step by step, but never mind. Okay. So as individuals, if we go think about the word teamwork, as individuals, do we have the opportunity to communicate its meaning by ourselves? Yes. Can you explain the word teamwork to me? By yourself. This is my question. The meaning of the word teamwork by yourself, by individual, without participating. Can you do that? If I need...
definition, more than one person. Either that or you're a split personality and you talk to yourself.
Okay.
That was the psychotic that we learned about earlier.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so, well, my point of view is to ask if we can get an ideas by ourselves or we need the group to participate our work. While working as a group, do we save our cards hide or we open them to the others? I think as educating teachers, and this is what I'm doing most of the time, this is a quick key questions while working by groups. I mean, if you really want the group to go further, to make some new ideas, then the participants need to agree to, uncover their ideas and their thoughts. Otherwise, the group cannot go further. Okay, so I may ask what allows the group to work together, and does the partner stimulate us, or do they support our creativity? Do the group promote and enhance our creativity? And do we grow by learning to interrelationship between our member of the class? And I think by speaking about children to be creative, we need to allow them to work in a group, but we also need to make the group being able to work together. And I think it's also speak previously. And the question is, does sharing ideas with others help the individual to expand your creativity? And if the answer is yes, of course, are we aware to the role of the group in the process of generating ideas? Shall we change the way they measure creativity? And shall we measure the creativity of the group or the individuals? Well, the research that we make was aimed at 11 to 14 years old, and we asked them to meet that challenge of attributing the meaning for this shape and also the meaning for other shapes and words. And according to what we have done here, I would ask myself and you, of course, what's the preferable way to meet the challenge individually or as a group or passively by pen and paper or actively? What do you think? Yes?
I think this is a lot like jazz. If you get to see what other people do, you rip off of
Great.
each other. And
This is a great metaphor. Thank you. Thank you.
It's more important than just working on it all by yourself.
Thank you very much. Okay. Would you like to say that? You would like to say no? Yeah? No. Okay. Thank you. Okay. The process of attributing meaning is considered to be natural way of thinking. We assume that children obtain the ability early in childhood. However, while our student, or actually my student, asked this student to attribute a meaning, they surprised to discover that this challenge is quite demanding, definitely not natural as assumed previously. And actually, I must admit that do you think that this was the way that we asked children, the way I give it to you? What do you imagine? Did we ask by note, by write down, or by making it actively? What? Well, actually, unfortunately, we did not do that. And while thinking about the results I'm going to show you now, I get to understand that if it was only passively, then how do we expect them to be creative? So I was thought about this exercise only after the research was finished. So this is the elaboration of teaching, but not of studying the process of creativity. So maybe when you go back, you can use it by yourself. Okay, but what does it means to attribute a meaning? Well, meaning is simply the explanation we give to a word, to our shape, or any image or data that we use to communicate. This explanation minimizes the gap between a word and its meaning and facilitates communication that is based on common understanding of the meaning. This is basically all the meaning theory by one sentence. The major assumption of the meaning is that meaning is always relates to particular content, that it can be transferable by communication, but it is a very complex phenomena composed of several components, actually quite a lot of components. Meaning includes personal and interpersonal aspects. As we wanted to measure the creativity of children, I made some further work based on the work of Kreitler and Kreitler meaning theory, and I divided the content to 4 categories, which is context categories built by causes, results, superordinate categories, dynamic characteristic, which is action, function, and manner of operation, physical characteristic, and inner world characteristic. And what we check is I would say, the uses of each family of categories in the test that we gave to the children. We actually asked them to fill out a meaning test, which include 11 words that they were asked to explain, and the creativity, standard creativity test. The findings of the standard creativity test was that what we measured was fluency and flexibility, and since there was no significant difference, we combined them together. As we did not find any significant differences in genders, but we found ages differences. We found that younger children scored higher than older, which is not a surprise, I think. And we saw that creativity was positively correlated with the cluster of inner world by means of being able to explain emotions, thoughts, and feelings, and negatively correlated with contextual meanings. Higher creativity might achieve by encouraging frequent use of inner world dimensions, such as feelings, thoughts, and emotions. And as asking you to make the shape, I gave this assignment to two professional dancers, and here is what they said they put on the shapes. I think we show here even more creative ideas. Here's the shape. I looked at you and I saw all these options in you. So you are professional, not dancers, but you are creative. So good for you. So why bother? Yeah, I'm finishing. This is the last one. Why measuring creativity was, well, James Catterall, I suppose some of you know his work. He said that simply if society, if we demand it, then we need to know when it's happening and the ways to measure it. But I would like to say that before measuring, we need to make it. So this is what we tried to do here. And thank you very much for being my.
Thank you very much, Achva. Any questions from the floor? You? Okay, thank you again. Okay, we move on to the second speech by Eugene Subbotsky. So we're not going to introduce you again, but this is on the impossible as a stimulator of creativity in children and as well in adults, I guess.
I'm appearing for the second time, and my fear is I'm tempting your patience. The only hope is that if you are patient with me for another quarter of an hour, you won't be disappointed. And the title is The Impossible as a Stimulator of Creativity in Children. My acknowledgement go to Claire Histed and Nicola Jones, who were my students and collaborators on this research. And I'm going to start with reminding you that one of the multiple functions of tools that we use, like hammer or language, is amplifying human actions. There are many others, but this is one which is important. It is easier to build a ship with the tools than with bare hands. It's easier to communicate through language than through gaze referencing or facial expressions. And tools are used by both humans and animals. But the tool I'm going to talk about today is very special, and it is specific to humans. And this tool is impossible entities and events. By impossible entities and events, I mean the entities and events which don't exist in reality, they exist only in imagination. For short, I'm going to call it the impossibles. being a castle by a magic spell, flying horses, gods that can read human minds or feed on fumes of sacrificed animals. They are all impossible objects. I'm going also to use the concept of contrasting possible entities, which is the exact opposite to the impossible entities, and they can exist both in imagination and in reality. For instance, for the impossibility such as an apple flying upwards by itself, the contrasting possibility would be an ordinary apple which falls down on earth if you let it go. For the impossibility such as half man, half horse, the contrasting possibility is a man or a horse. The problem I'm going to raise is, are impossibilities more effective amplifiers or facilitators of human action than contrasting possibles? For example, is it easier and more effective to help children understand and remember the law of gravity through demonstrating them an image of an apple which is lifting itself up in the air, or by showing them an ordinary apple falling down on earth? On first glance, it would be more effective to use an apple which is falling on earth, because the children, the ordinary apple, the possible apple, is something which is a part of the children's everyday experience, whereas the impossible apple and a non-flying object lifting up itself in the air is not. However, on reflection, a different picture emerges about the amplifying power of impossibilities versus the possibilities. The thing is that the impossibility is very different from a possibility in terms of its amplifying power. When we think about the possibility, for example, about a horse, this is a single image. We only see in our mind the horse. In contrast, if we see think about the impossibility, such as a flying horse, then in our mind appears the whole chain of images. First of all, the horse, the flying horse. Then, because we are aware that the flying horse doesn't exist, there appears an image of a horse, and then there appears an image of an eagle, right? So instead of just a single image, we have 3 images at once. On this ground, I can conclude or assume that the attention-grabbing capacity of the impossible images should be greater than the attention-grabbing capacity of contrasting possible images. Because when the impossible image is being processed in the mind, its attention-grabbing capacity is added to by the attention-grabbing capacity of the possible images, which it kind of pulls out of our mind and our memory. And the more attention-grabbing capacity, the more attention-grabbing and interesting the image is, the stronger it affects other psychological faculties, such as memory, creative thinking, and perception. We know, because our psychological faculties don't exist in our mind as isolated entities. They exist all together. They communicate with each other. And the communicative message of the impossible image should be stronger than the communicative message of the possible entity. So in the study I'm going to talk about, we aimed to compare the facilitating impact of impossible entities versus contrasting possible entities on children's creative thinking. So how does the creativity come into the game here? Creative thinking, and it's been already said a few times here, is the ability to generate novel behavior, novel ideas. And thinking about the impossibles provides non-trivial, novel solutions to common problems. For example, it is easier to move from one point to another and faster on a dragon than on a horse. And this common feature between thinking about the impossible and creative thinking allows one to assume that engaging people in one of these activities, namely thinking about the impossible, might enhance the other activity, creative thinking, through the ordinary mechanisms of learning, priming and or associations. We also know from previous research that exposing children to cinema and TV affects their subsequent thinking and behavior. Therefore, we assumed in this study that exposing children to a movie with impossible entities and events would facilitate their creative thinking to a larger extent than exposing children to the contrasting possible entities and events. So in experiment 1, British 4- and 6-year-olds were shown a film based on the Harry Potter series with either impossible or contrasting possible entities. There were two groups, experimental and control. The control group viewed the film with the impossible entities, people flying on broomsticks, animals talking, and all sorts of things that you've seen in the Harry Potter. And the other group saw the film from the same movie with the same characters doing similar actions, only there was nothing impossible in them. The experiment looked like that. Okay, pre-tests, experimental group, control group, then exposure to films, and post-tests. I only want to tell you that the creativity was measured by the Torrance's Thinking Creatively in Action and Movement TCAM test. And another test used for measuring creativity, assessing creativity, was a known drawing non-existent impossible entities test by Carmelo Smith. Okay, and the results indicated quite unequivocally that after, but not before exposure to the film, the children who watched the film with impossible entities showed significantly higher creativity on the subtests, actually all the subtests of the outcome test than the children who watched the contrasting possible entities. This is just one graph to illustrate. The black bars show the performance, post-exposure performance of experimental children versus gray bars showing the performance of the control group children. And the same tendency was observed on the second drawing the impossible entity test. In experiment 2, we aim to do two things. First of all, replicate experiment 1 results with the other groups of children. One of them was older group of children, 8-year-olds, and taken from in another area of England. And also with a different experimenter to eliminate the possible experimenter's effect. And secondly, to examine whether exposure to the film with the impossible entities along with increasing children's creativity, also makes children believe stronger in the reality of those impossible entities, whether their beliefs also grow. And the results, first of all, completely replicated the results of experiment 1 in terms of the link between impossible entities and the growth in creativity. But interestingly, exposing children to the impossible events and defects didn't affect their belief that the impossible entities and defects are real. So in conclusion, I can say that exposing children to the impossible entities and events does increase their creativity to a larger extent than exposing children to similarly equally interesting and exciting but possible entities and events. And rather than being a mere byproduct of cognitive development that can occasionally be used for entertainment, thinking about the impossible, that is viewing movies with impossible effects, reading books with impossible effects, fairy tales and so on, this can be used as an important resource for boosting creativity in children, with the obvious implications for education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eugene, for a very interesting presentation. Do we have questions from the floor? Ron, please.
This is very interesting. the concept of setting impossible situations is, I think, people that teach creativity do this all the time. The trick is then how to turn those impossible situations into practical ideas. So I'll give you an example. Set my students a task to design a vehicle or concepts for a vehicle driven by someone who has a delayed reaction time of 3 or 4 seconds. Okay, seems like a crazy sort of notion. Then to think about who fits into that scenario. My grandmother, because she probably has a bit of a delayed reaction time in terms of responding to things. Someone who's drunk, someone who's got a hearing impairment or a sight impairment. In actual fact, you can then bring those impossible scenarios into real life situations by realizing that there are lots of people that maybe have elements of those impossible scenarios, and then you can come up with ideas for practical things. Just a thought.
Thank you. I think that there are 2 ways to answer your question. Yes, if you set a task to turn an impossible entity to convert it into possible entities, then this conversion basically goes automatically. If I show you, for example, a half man, half horse, then you don't have to think about what possible or contrasting possible entities this impossible entity come from. It comes kind of automatically, a man and a horse, all right? But what I'm talking about is that what these impossible entities and events make us do is not actually the engineering conversion of impossibilities into possibilities. This can be done, but that's not my point. The point is that they stir up our subconsciousness. They stir up our subconsciousness to such an extent that even when you are given an ordinary task on creativity, like this TCAM test is, and that TCAM test basically consists of 4 subtests, like you are given a plastic cup, and you are asked, the child is asked to invent as many possible ways of using the plastic cup as he can, as a cap or as a tool for throwing and whatever, okay? That showing the impossible entities stirs up your subconsciousness and makes you more creative even in the area of completely everyday possible tasks. That's what is, I think, a non-trivial element in this research.
Can move on then. Thank you very much. And we started the day by saying that we have speakers from 5 continents, and we have 1 continent which is still missing, which is Asia, but we're going to complete the picture now with Chunfang Zhao. She's from China, but she's working in Denmark now. She's a professor at Aalborg University, working on group creativity, engineering education and innovation, and intercultural ability. So Chunfang, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I feel very lucky that I'm the last one in the last session of today. And I come from China. I have been in Denmark almost 5 years. In China, we have a very famous saying to say that the last one will be the most important one. But I don't think my presentation will be the most important one because we are still looking forward to the welcome cocktail. Yeah, I'll start my presentation. It is about a comparative study on group creativity in student projects in science and engineering education between Denmark and China. Yeah, today we have talked so much about the needs of engineering education that we need creativity. So a lot of new strategies have been explored for fostering creativity in engineering and science education. Some new conceptions like active learning, collaborative learning, a lot of strategies. Among these strategies, I focus on learning by projects because it has been argued as one of the good examples to foster creativity. Today, my talk will be based on two of my research projects. And the two research projects are located in framework of social cultural theories. And they both are related to three aspects. One is creativity and innovation. Another one is engineering and technology. And the third one is teaching and learning. The first, I use both qualitative and quantitative methods in both projects. And the first project was about a study on core competency of science and technology groups in universities in China. And here, from literature review, we found that we can explain the core competency of the groups as three important aspects. The first one is the group structure. That means in one group in the university, how many professors is a group have and how many associate professors and how many students. Another aspect is a group resource. That means how many projects this group can get from the support of government or industry. And another aspect is group climate. So, in this background, I did some empirical work. The first method is documentation and questionnaire and some interviews. And in this study, I just focus on group climate aspect. And the second project could be the extended work of the first one. It is about group creativity development in problem-based learning environment in engineering education. And based on this project, I have published 5 papers in my PhD thesis. And I take Aalborg University in Denmark as the main research context, where it has a long traditional way of PBL environment. And I mainly use qualitative methods in this context. Another context was chosen in project organized teams in China. And I use questionnaire and interview the mixed methods there. So I have to say that when I started the first project, I didn't have any idea to have the second one. Today, I have finished the 2 projects, and then I look back to find that I have a lot of interesting findings based on the 2 projects. So I'm very happy to report you some of the findings here. Here is the explanation of the 2 research contexts. The project organized groups in China. That means when the master students, I mean the engineering students or the science students, when they go to the last year in their study, they have some opportunities to join in the student projects. And these projects were supported by governments or companies. And in these groups, they have supervisors, and the students come from different backgrounds and different levels. But in every semester during the beginning period, there are always some new students join in the group, and some old students will leave because they have finished this kind of education. In this group, the supervisors or the teacher, they play a triple roles. They are the supervisor. They are responsible students learning in the group. And meanwhile, they are professors in university. And they have leadership in the group. So they are the group, team leaders. And they also are the experts in some kind of fields. The second research context in PBL environment in Aalborg University in Denmark. Aalborg University is a very new university in Europe. It was built in 1970s. When this university was built, it has the PBL tradition. We think there are at least 3 conditions of group creativity development in such environment. The first one is the students are organized by problem orientation and project work to engage in their learning process. And of course, students in a group context. And the most important one is the roles of teacher, they change from teaching to facilitation. That means the teacher stand behind the children, behind, sorry, I'm a mother, behind the students and give them the necessary support when they need, and they give them some exploration opportunities to get the right answer. It is not the traditional way that we give the student direct answer directly. So it is the differences between the two contexts. And there are some research questions I designed for the comparative study. The first one is, what are the same and different influencing factors of group creativity development between project organized groups in China and problem-based learning group in Denmark? And based on this kind of study, how should we understand group creativity as a social cultural conception in a science and engineering education environment? From the literature review, we have to have a deep understanding of creativity. And normally we can find 4 P approach. The first P is person. That means to understand the traits, characteristics, and the attributes of creative personality. Another P approach is place. That means we emphasize the environment where the person works, which may conducive or inhibitive of creativity. And the third P is product. That means we focus on the qualities of product, which make it creative. And the last one is process. That means we describe the stage of thinking that creative people use to invent something new and useful. And we have so many approaches, but we usually use the more combined approach. That means we focus on place, person, process, and product together. So currently, the social approach have done great contribution to creativity research. And this approach, it emphasizes the shaping roles of the context. So we can see that creativity research has some change. It has shifted from the isolated individuals, from focus on the internal change of internal competence, to focus on the interaction between individuals and the environment. So from the creativity research, you can know that we have changed from focus on what creativity is to focus on where creativity happens or how creativity happens. So from this way, I can give you a personal understanding of creativity from the perspective of where creativity happens. Firstly, creativity happens in mind in here. That means we focus on the person approach, and any creative idea is generated from cognitive process in mind. And creativity can happen in the collaboration. That means we focus on collaborative process that is beyond individual level. And creativity could be happen in the interpersonal interaction, and it is a set version of something new and useful. And the last place I can say creativity happens in the social system. That means we have to emphasize the social influences on creativity, the social structure, some factors like social structure, economy, culture, religion, policy, community, our nation, our family. And in my study, I especially focus on creativity in collaboration. That is a basic understanding of group creativity. So group creativity, to analyze the relationship between group and creativity, I can say, firstly, group can be the subject of creativity. It can be understood as group's creativity. And meanwhile, group can be the context of individual creativity. We can say group creativity is creativity in group. So based on this kind of understanding, and I have some research methods in the 2 research projects. Yeah, you can show it is a review of the methods and the participants in my study. The data collected in China that happens several years ago, I used the questionnaire survey. It is a creative climate questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, there are 10 dimensions, and in which dimensions we have some factors. The factors like challenge, freedom, idea support, trust, dynamic, playfulness, idea time, risk-taking, and conflict, and so on. And I used the questionnaire as the first step investigation in some groups in the university, in 7 universities in northeastern China. And the group's domains includes more than 10 fields like electricity, process, material, environment, and so on. And you can also find the numbers of teams in groups. And based on the investigation of the questionnaire survey, I also have some interviews with group leaders in the group. There are 8 interviews in this project study. Another part of data collection is in Denmark. Firstly, I focused on a student satellite project in Aalborg University. It was the 3rd student satellite, and this satellite project was started in 2007, and it was ended in 2010, and the satellite was launched successfully. The aim of the satellite was to make an automatic identification system and to help the ships in the sea to contact with each other. You can find this picture, yeah. And within the Aalborg University, it has a joint venture. It was organized by several departments, like Department of Electronic System, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Department of Computer Science, and the Department of Energy Technology. And I collected data from the May in 2008 and December in 2009. And I interviewed and observed 14 students, 14 participants. There are 12 students and 2 supervisors. The students come from different semesters. Besides the collaboration within the Aalborg University, there are also some outside spotters to support the satellite project. You can see some slogans of the company. Here are some pictures I took for students learning in satellite project. The students are very flexible, and you can find their study room is like a home-like environment, and the students have microwave and have bread. They can drink coffee when they are learning. They can have a lot of discussions to make real satellite. Besides this special case, I also have interviewed some students in Aalborg University. 53 students, they come from 12 groups and 4 fields like computer science, electronic system, architecture design, and meteorology. Based on the 2 parts of data collection and analysis, I found some interesting findings. Firstly, I would say that in both contexts, group creativity has a lot of influencing factors. In China, you can see that this factor includes like group openness, group size, rewards, conflicts between the group members, and risk-taking, diversity, resource, clarity of goals, members' relationship, and the challenge of the task, and the time of the project, the deadline of the project. And in Danish context, we also can find a lot of factors like challenge, time, members' relationship, clarity of goals, disagreements, group goals, peer support, confidence of being creative, and group members' working habits and their attitudes towards to be creativity. And we also can see that these factors are influenced with each other in both contexts, like the challenge of the task stimulate students' motivation, and to tell the students they have to have a diverse background in the group. So from the different colors, you also can find the similarities and the differences about the influencing factor between the 2 contexts. And in both contexts, you can find the same factor like challenge, time, members' relationship, and clarity of goals, and so on. And one of the most important findings is in the two contexts, I found different attitudes of the teachers towards students' group creativity. In project organized team in China, the supervisors are university professors, and they are deeply influenced some traditional Chinese philosophy. And they have some responsibility of group leaders, and they like to assign the task for the students and to put students in the task and tell them the deadline. You have to finish it within 1 or 2 days and give me a report. And so somehow they like the mother of the students, and because they are the group leaders, they are in charge of the group report. They have to finish the project. So, and because the projects are supported by the government or in companies, and they have to finish within limited time. And the students only have the opportunity to join in the project and to finish tasks in project. So they cannot design some tasks by themselves, and they are not encouraged to propose as many as creative ideas due to the limited time and the leadership of the processor of the examination, something like this. So they cannot manage the project by themselves. And okay. But in Danish context, it's a different picture. The students in PPL environment, they share the leadership, they manage the project by themselves, they have the ownership of the learning, and the supervisor give them necessary support. That is different. So the supervisors are not the mother of the student, they are one of the students. They are the learning experts in the students. That indicates some improvements need to do to make project organized teams in China, and some new elements should be introduced in this context, like student-centered learning. And yeah, I only have 1 minute. Yeah. Some conclusions like, we can say that group creativity is a social activity in engineering and science education. It happens in the interaction between peers, between students and supervisors, and between the students' groups and projects. So I would like to view project could be the active member of the student group. That means the students' group creativity happens when they are learning by doing, and it is developed by the interaction between student thinking and doing in practice. And when they find a wrong solution, and the project tells them that you have to do again to find a new one because it is wrong, the practice tells you that it is not the right answer. And since we find both similarities and differences of the group creativity between the two contexts, we can say that it is both cultural general and cultural specific conceptions. So I have to say that in a given educational culture, both cultural advantage and cultural barriers to creativity should be understood very well before we make the good strategies that are helpful to foster creative engineers and scientists, because all we want to do is for the students, for creativity. Yes, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chung-Fang. So I have a question for you, just to close up. We have talked about groups, multidisciplinarity, even though Vint Cerf doesn't like the term, but we still use that. Now, after your presentation, the idea could come that the group should be also multicultural to have different cultural influences. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I can tell you some of my experience when I just arrived in Denmark. And in China, we focus on individual learning, and group work is very new for us. But I didn't experience the group work like I present in my project. And when I just arrived in Denmark, I found the students, and both students and the teaching staff focus on group contest. And first, at the beginning, I couldn't understand why the people here, they have so many group meetings. And why I cannot understand, because I can't work, I finished my PhD study. Then why I need a group? And then when I go into some theory of learning and teaching, I know that we are living in the social constructivism model, but in China, in somewhere, I have to say that we still use behaviorism approach to students. So it is not much with practice and theory. We have the gaps. That is why we need to improve. But in China, in Denmark, I have to say that I have been here almost 5 years. So the problem-based learning is not a strategy to teach students, to give students opportunity of learning. It can be one kind of cultural element in the working environment. We have the staff group, we focus on the group, so we focus on the problem. So that is why we have group, so different cultural philosophy behind different ways of teaching and learning. So that is my experience.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I want to really thank all the speakers and our young scholars here and all of you for participating to this first day of the conference, which to me was really exciting, so thank you very much. At 7 o'clock, there's the welcome cocktail at Palazzo Fava with also a visit to the museum there. It's in Via Manzoni, the really center of the city. Thanks again, and have a good evening, everyone. Thanks.